All right, welcome everyone to this Discovery and Exposition Foundry session webinar where we'll do an introduction to VoiceThread and go over some of the logistics for your Discovery or Exposition Foundry sessions. If you haven't already, please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat so we can get to know each other a bit if you're just joining us. Next slide, please. Thank you. Oh, go back one, please. Thank you. So just like most of the conference, this session will be recorded and it will be available for on-demand viewing. You will be able to find the link on the Presenter Services webpage afterward, and I'll post that link in the chat. Go ahead to the next slide, please, Tanya. Thanks. Feel free to ask questions. You can type it in the chat or raise your hand if you want to ask it using the mic. We do ask that you keep your mic on mute if you're not actively speaking in order to minimize background noise. Next slide, please. Thank you. We have a great panel here for you today. With us for the web, Rastari, who are both co-chairs of our Presenter Services Committee for OLC Accelerate. And I'm Katie Fife-Schuster. I'm the Director of Conferences and Events for OLC. And with that, I'd like to hand things over to our panelists to get us started.
Thank you so much, Katie, and good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today for this brief webinar to give you a little bit of an orientation over something that we love called discovery sessions. So like everybody, we are adapting to a slightly different format. And so this year we've pulled together some really cool technologies to assist you with doing interactive discovery sessions. So if you've never heard the word discovery session before, think of it as an electronic poster session, but it's an electronic poster session with a whole lot of interactivity built in. So we're going to go through, I'll share a little bit of the administrative and tips, and then I'll hand it off to Tanya, and she'll do a demonstration for you of utilizing the VoiceThread technology. And then we'll wrap up with some logistics and also share with you some excellent resources, including at the very end of this presentation, we have some links that you'll have after the session today, and they'll give you some additional advice regarding presentation materials, as well as some specific examples. If you've never actually even seen a live voice thread, then we've included some links for some really great voice threads, including from some previous OLC presenters. Okay, so we'll have those to share with you. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at some items to think about regarding what it means to be in a virtual to virtual asynchronous discovery session. So virtual to virtual actually sounds like we're going to be live. And the truth of it is, if you think about what you might have experienced in a virtual poster session or in an e-poster session before, particularly if you've ever actually attended an OLC conference with discovery sessions, normally we're in a very, very large conference room. We might be in an auditorium of some type. And in that regard, we're all managing a table and we have our computer with us and we're presenting. But the goal is actually not presentations. In a discovery session, the goal is interactivity. The goal is to 100% get people to engage with us. So from the discovery session angle that we've created here for you, where we're asking you to use VoiceThread, your main focus is share content in a concentrated area and engage and interact with participants. So keep that in mind. That's what we're going to do going forward, is not just tell you I want you to build your slides, but build your slides, concentrate them into the points that are most critical. And then from there, you want to actually build in interactivity by using your voice, by using video clips, etc. So we're going to tell you a little bit about that. So you'll see here that it's asynchronous in conjunction with VoiceThread. And I'm going to talk about that in a moment in terms of some ways that you can supplement your VoiceThread. You definitely are going to be there to share your idea. You submitted a conference proposal. Believe it or not, it's actually very, very hard to get accepted into our conferences. And so if you got in, you are one of a smaller group, so congratulations. But to be able to be accepted into the Online Learning Consortia conferences, we want you to focus in on a discovery session that really has 3 to 5 really salient points. So go back and look at your slides, think about the topics that you submitted, and probably if you submitted to a discovery session, or even if you submitted to a different format and you were moved into discovery session, you can cull it down into 3 or 5 salient points. So start thinking about that. And we will be able to kind of broaden that out in a way to engage audiences. Okay. All right, so we're also going to focus specifically on making deeper connections, and part of that is the reasoning behind why we adopted VoiceThread. So VoiceThread will allow not only for you to do audio overlay to explain each of your slides that you've built out, but it will also allow all of the audience to provide interactivity and engagement after the fact in an asynchronous component. So that's one of the keys. It's one of the reasons why we made the decision to actually specifically build out this tool using VoiceThread. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at some ideas that we have to share with you on the next slide. As you're seeing here, and as you may actually have already read in a description of what a discovery session actually entails, one of the things to keep in mind is that even if you had been in a face-to-face environment, all discovery sessions always are usually slotted as no more than 10 to 15 minutes. So even if you had been in a traditional environment, you would have typically been presenting for 10 to 12 minutes and then allowing 3 to 5 minutes for questions. So go ahead and kind of adjust that in your head and think, okay, so I'm going to do 10 to 15 minutes. That's probably 3, 5, or 7 slides, depending on how much you have to say. I usually tell people don't go over 7 slides. I think that in a 15-minute presentation, you really can't cover much more. So my range is usually 3 to 7. I tend to go to 7. You're going to notice I like to talk. And so I normally am up to 7, with my first one being an introduction, my last one being references, and then slides 2 to 6 are usually the meat of my content. So as we'll show you in just a moment, by utilizing VoiceThread specifically, we have already pre-built a template for you. So all of you are going to use the pre-built template that has been assigned to you. You'll be able to directly upload your slides, your images, and all types of other items directly into the VoiceThread that we've built for you. And then you'll be able to personalize it in a way that you need to reflect your session's intent and all the other items, excuse me, that you might want to utilize. One of the things that's important to understand about this is that even though OLC Accelerate is in a limited time frame, once your content is posted, it's going to be available for the viewers for up to a year. So that's one of the really cool things about actually offering this in a discovery session format. If you love discovery sessions, and if you've ever attended a webinar with me about discovery sessions, you probably know this is my favorite format. And so if you love discovery sessions, the idea is I want to share my research, I want to share my best practices, and I want you guys to give me feedback. That is one of the best things about being in a discovery session, because you can put information out into the world. You can build collaborative documents like Google Documents, Google Spreadsheets, Google Slides, anything that you want to share, and people can continue to work on and process those over the entire year that your discovery session is made available to the community. So I just wanted to make sure and make that point as well, that not only will you have the opening time during the Accelerate conference itself, but in addition to that, everybody will be able to interact with you going forward in various ways too. All right, so let's go ahead and hop forward. This is just a little how-to, and then I'm about to hand it off to Tanya. What I really want you to see about this is it's a total of 5 steps. It's going to look very similar. If you've never used VoiceThread, it's going to look very similar to creating a PowerPoint or a Google slideshow and then adding audio. It's very, very similar in concept to how that works. So probably the most important key feature here is this needs to be uploaded by November 2nd. Okay, so please mark that date. If you're like me, set a reminder 2 weeks in advance, set a reminder 7 days in advance, and then maybe 3 days and 1 day as well, just to make sure everything's done. So you need to make sure that this is completed and that it's uploaded to the OLC conference management system by no later than November 2nd. The steps that you'll see in items 2 through 5, you're going to go to slide view, you're going to upload your files such as your PowerPoint slides. You'll be able to go through and add comments, and by comments, that's your audio overlay. You do have the ability to re-record. So that's usually my faculty members' number 1 question. What if I mess up? Can I delete it and re-record? You can do that as many times as you want. So if you feel like you need to, then that's totally fine to do that as well. And then you do have the ability, as you can see in item number 5, to click through through and present from a live perspective as well. And so I think one of the things that we love the most about VoiceThread is it's so user-friendly. It does allow you to make edits. It does allow you to go back and make corrections as needed too. So I think that's one of the things we hope you guys are going to love, is being able to add the audio overlay, being able to go back and watch and hear interactivities and responses and feedback from individuals who view your presentation as well. All right, let's go ahead and go to the next slide. And I believe here I'm going to hand it off to Tanya, and she's going to do a brief demo for us.
Thank you so much, Sherry. That was great. Great introduction. So you should have gotten an email that was specific to your VoiceThread template. And so you'll go into that template itself. So sometimes you might be creating your own VoiceThread, and in that case, you could start a new one. But for this case, you'll want to go in and edit the one that has already been provided to you. As was mentioned in the chat, if you don't have a VoiceThread account, you can use the email address that was used to send you that email with your notification about your template. And so you just go into that and set up an account, and then you'll have access to edit that VoiceThread. So I'm going to jump over on our screen to our VoiceThread page, and I have pulled up the demo file that you will have, or the template file that you will have received. And within that, if you were to go in and actually play that, you would see the walkthrough. And the walkthrough will actually take you through each individual slide, the step-by-steps, and how to set up your VoiceThread. You can leave all of these slides in until you're all done. And at that point, you can either reply back to the conference's email address that you received, or you can delete those slides whenever you're ready for them. So when it's time for you to add in your content, you just use this plus button. This plus button is going to give you lots of different options. You can either upload from your computer, you can upload from other sources, you can upload or create an audio recording or a webcam photo or a webcam video, or you can link to a URL. So in any one of those cases, you'll be able to add content. You can either add content in pieces, so you can add pieces one at a time, or if you already have a PowerPoint file or a Google Slides file, you can upload that all at once. So I'm going to go through the process of actually creating a set of documents using my computer. And I'm just going to grab a file here really quickly. Goes through a quick little process, and so it will bring that in, and then those slides are all going to be brought in as I had them already built into that PowerPoint presentation. Now, as Sherry was mentioning, that's way too many slides, so I'd probably want to trim it down, but this is a good way for me to go through and kind of think through what pieces do I want to talk through and how do I want to actually create it. One of the things that I would recommend you do is on your very first, so this will be our first slide. On that first slide, you add, so I'm going to double click on it sorry, I'm going to pencil it to, let's see, this one is where I could put my title. Let me actually go into my, I'm kind of trying to make sure I'm in the right place here. All right.
Please use the following instructions.
All right, so this is the one that already has the audio in it. If I wanted to skip ahead to my slides, I just use this little arrow here, click through to the one that I have. All right, and then I can add my comments here onto the thread. Hang on here. It is not behaving for me. There we go. Sometimes this little plus doesn't always show up. And so either refreshing the screen or going back or forth between those modes will make this little plus sign come back in. So you just click this plus, and it's going to give you the option to do a text comment, an audio comment, a video comment, or to upload something else to it. So you can upload a comment as well. I recommend on your first slide that you include an audio comment. A text comment that tells people just a brief little instructions of how you want them to proceed. Sometimes they don't automatically see that or hear that video or the audio or video comment. And so just having the text one there can help as well. So So you just add that in, and then it's going to have this little comment here. I can always edit it or delete it or change font sizes or things like that later on. But then I can go in and add some text comment or some audio comments. So it's currently recording right now. And when I am done with my recording, I just have to click on the stop. It will play it back and let me hear it as soon as it's finished uploading. All right. So it's currently recording right now. And when I am done with my recording, I just have to click on the stop. Okay, and if I like that just fine, I can click save, or if I didn't like it, I can hit cancel and record it again. So I'm going to click save. And now when I'm playing my presentation itself, I will first see the text comment and then hear the audio. So it's currently recording right now. And as Katie had mentioned, you can put in multiple comments within the timeline itself. Now, one of the things to recognize is that once you have added all of your content in there and people are starting to access your presentation in VoiceThread, their comments will then be added onto the timeline in addition to yours. And so you'll be able to play through, respond to, and your replies will then be embedded on. So I can add another comment. And right now, since I'm the same user, I'll see those all three. But once you have different users, you'll start to see different comments coming in with different profile images. That's the most part of everything that you would do. One thing I will show you here in is that, oh, let's go here. Okay, so you'll add in your narration and your text comments and not just your slides. You want to make sure you put content in there. And then you'll want to come back periodically and interact with the people who are commenting and posting on your VoiceThread. Because people will have access to this for a year, you probably don't want to constantly be checking back for a full year. So we'll encourage you to use notifications. I'll show you how to do that in just a minute. But during the time frame of the conference, you probably do want to check it on a regular basis so that you're making sure that you get the opportunity to interact with anyone who is coming along and asking you questions or asking for more information or just commenting on their experiences. So in terms of notifications, I'm going to put a link to the notifications from VoiceThread in the chat. But you'll go to your account. And when you click on your account name, you'll see My Account. And then from My Account, you'll go to the tab that says Notifications. And from there, you'll be able to choose how frequently you would like to receive those notifications. So if you want to get a daily digest where all the comments come in one email, you can turn that on. And it will send you an email that lets you know that people are commenting on your VoiceThread. So that can be really helpful in keeping you interacting with your viewers. All right, Katie, I'll turn it over to you.
Oh, I think Sherry was going to jump back in with the logistics.
Yep, this one's me. We're going to give
I'll
Katie a
jump
break
in
for a
if
second. That's
more.
okay. Katie is on fire
No
in the
problem.
chat here.
I'm trying.
All right. Yeah, thank you. So let's take a look at the presenter logistics. This is just some of the administrative pieces for you guys to keep in mind. We've already talked about the fact that all of you should have gotten your links. If you did not, then Katie is your go-to person that can help you. I think somebody already asked who is this sent to, and I think Katie did confirm that that goes specifically to the lead presenter. So your lead presenter should have received that as well. So do know that.
Sherry.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
I do want to just correct that. It was sent to all of the presenters listed on the proposals,
Good.
because I know that y'all are working on things collaboratively. So if you have multiple presenters that were listed on your proposal, the link was sent to each of them, and the share and with edit access was sent to each of them as well.
Oh, good. Good. Thank you. That's awesome.
Sure.
So, and that's super helpful actually too. So do make sure, of course, everybody's been asking in the chat, can we continue to edit? You can definitely do that, but we do need to try to have everything initially uploaded by November 2nd. There's a comment on here that's talking about the thread boxes, organize into thread boxes by track. If you don't know what your track is, and I have been one of these people who forget what track I submit into, you can actually go back and look at how your presentation is coded in the OLC Accelerate program, and you can see which track you were accepted into as well. So that will tell you, are you teaching and learning, or are you this, or are you that, and that will remind you specifically of what your track is. There's also a note on here specifically, follow the instructions to add your presentation materials. And so I wanted to give you guys a tip. This is a tip that I have offered every time I've done a webinar about discovery sessions, and it is just as relevant, if not more relevant here, as we continue thinking about what kinds of materials we add. So if you think about what a discovery session or an e-poster session used to look like, you're in a physical space, you have a physical table, you might bring goodies, you might bring things, handouts, goodies, takeaways, giveaways, etc. So here's the thing I want you to think about, not just uploading your VoiceThread, but one of the things that you can also do in the OLC conference repository system is if there are additional items, things that you normally would have handed out. So maybe this is part of a larger project and you have a repository of articles that you've collated, you have a Google Doc, you have something that you want to actually give out to them. Then one of the things that is one of my favorites to do when I've presented in discovery sessions is not only to have the slideshow or the VoiceThread already constructed, but maybe to have a longer version, or to have a more expansive item, or to have a collaborative item like a Google Doc that I mentioned earlier, and make that available. In particular, if you're using a cloud-based document, then of course you can continue to edit that periodically as you might want to going forward. Okay, so I just wanted to kind of bring that out. VoiceThread is the core of what your discovery session is going to look like. However, in terms of supplemental materials, it's up to you. And I think that's one of the values here is you have the ability to build out materials, upload those to the OLC conference management system, and include things that you might collaborate with your visitors on. And so that's something to perhaps think about as we go forward. So notice that there's the final note on this slide also talks about not only are your presentations actually coded by the track that you're accepted into, but they're also directly linked from the conference website. What that means to you as the presenter is they can find you easily. Okay, so that's really helpful, is when people are looking for sessions going, I'm really interested in the teaching and learning track, they're going to find you by being able to look through that specific track. So that just helps us to really elevate you guys and put you in front of them in a way that they can actually locate you a little bit further. All right, let's take a look at the next one. So I've included multiple different resources at the very end of this slideshow that specifically kind of details this a little bit more. But as Katie said in the beginning, when she introduced Tanya and I are actually the co-chairs for what's called presenter services. This is different than a lot of other online conferences and face-to-face conferences that you might have been to. OLC actually lets us build things to help presenters, and it's fantastic. It's not just slide templates, but it's presentation tips. It's tips about how to record appropriately. There's so many great things that we've spent time building out for you. So I just wanted to make sure that you have this direct slide that goes to presenter services, and that will give you a wealth of different information. So you'll have downloadable guides, you'll have recordings of all the tutorials, including this tutorial, which will be available, knowing Katie, really quickly. Like it's like, I don't want to say 24 hours, but it feels like it's always 24 hours later because Katie's fantastic. So anytime we do these types of webinars for you guys, we make sure and make those available for you to look at later. Let's go ahead and take a look at the next item, because I want to make sure that we have time to very briefly talk about your tech considerations. So I hope you guys are able to see my video okay. Hopefully my audio sounds great. What you're seeing here with this lovely headset that makes me feel like Minnie Mouse when I wear it it is I can hear you guys really well. I can hear everything. And then I also have this lovely microphone in front of my face. So the reason why this is super important is it captures audio. And if you're in a space like I am, and the ceilings are too high and the audio is not great around me, then your voice thread isn't going to sound really great when you record those comments onto each of your individual slides or sections. So you want to be mindful of maybe even kind of testing this out, recording one and listening to it back, and making sure that you have good audio. Sometimes it's nothing more than making sure you're recording in a space where you don't have any family members around you. Sometimes it is doing what I'm doing and using a headset to make sure you've captured your audio really quickly and really closely. So making sure that you have either a good environment for recording where you have a little bit of quality time away from other noises and distractions. The stable internet connection is in particular important when you're uploading materials. So that's one to actually keep in mind. A webcam, of course, with you using any video, then you would want to have that as well. I think in terms of the way we teach VoiceThread at my own campus, the biggest thing is go ahead and produce the first 1 or 2 slides. Don't stop and redo them. Do the first 1 or 2 and then go back and review them and see what you think about them. So usually getting faculty to go through the first 1 or 2 slides is going to be enough for you to get a feel for and get your feet wet with recording with VoiceThread and get an idea of what is and is not working. Just to reiterate again, we want you to try to get everything uploaded if possible by November 2nd, knowing you can make some updates to that afterwards if you need to. And then the reminder that you're able to access and you're able to have individuals comment back on your VoiceThread for up to a year after the conference has ended as well. All right, so let's take a look at the next slide.
Sherry, can I just jump in and add one comment here? There was a question in the chat about our expectation or of the obligation that you have to stay maintaining comments for a year. That's why we encourage people to use the notifications, because you don't want to spend your time jumping back and forth between the slides if there aren't comments. But if you get those notifications, then you can jump right in and say, respond to people if they do have comments.
To add to that, Tanya, our experience is so far, this being our second all virtual conference, that the bulk of the interaction does happen during those 2 weeks of the conference, maybe a little bit on the 3rd week. So after that, the level of interaction with the voice threads and with the on-demand recordings does tend to taper off a little bit. So you know, the bulk of that interaction will happen during the weeks of the conference. And you might get a comment later on, but it won't be often or frequent, most likely. Although that opportunity is there.
So I was in the process of trying to respond actually back to one of the attendees. And so this is perfect. I hit enter finally and submitted my comment back. That is the type of thing that I think would be super helpful if you have the ability to share with individuals. There it goes. To share with individuals, maybe as a final slide. Hey guys, this is how long I'm going to be monitoring it, and after that, send me an email. That's totally fine. And I think that is a very professional way of handling it as well. I actually did that before we were in this venue with a virtual to virtual asynchronous. I would actually add that on my final Google slide. Hey guys, please make sure to email me at. So I was totally saying, I'm not monitoring this. Don't expect me to monitor this. Instead, I want you to send me an email. And I think that's totally reasonable. We get that all the time. If you publish an article, it could be 4 years later that somebody emails you. So this to me is a very professional way of communicating. I'll monitor from this date to this date, and then please afterwards send me an email. And I think most of the time people are familiar with that, and it comes across very professionally. So don't be afraid to add that as a final slide or a final comment in your slides as well, just to let them know that that's how you'll be monitoring it too. Okay. So accessing your session during the conference. So you're going to log in. You'll be placed into a lobby. You'll see a specific section that says discovery session. So that's what we're classified as. And then from there, Interestingly enough, and Katie can give you a little bit more detail, we're actually kind of in two different views for the OLC conference management suite right now. Right now, if you're in what's called the classic view, you'll have what are called thread boxes, and you'll be able to see that, as I mentioned earlier, you're classified by your track. So you'll just look for your track and then you'll enter in through that track. So it is important for you to know what your specific track is, and that's how you'll get access to your specific session. You'll click on your VoiceThread session, and that's how it will appear as well. And as Katie and also Tanya just mentioned, you need to make sure you set up those notifications, at least for the period that you're planning to monitor it. How long do you need to monitor it? Throughout the conference. So I would say in general, monitor it from the beginning of the conference to perhaps a week or two afterwards. Just make sure you're specific with the viewers of how long you'll be doing that. And then make sure that you're checking for your notifications. I would also throw in here, because my campus is finicky about this, sometimes notifications go to your spam. So just be mindful that sometimes they'll get thrown into your junk folder. So you do have to pay attention to that. It has to do with how each of our campuses networks are set up. So it's very intermittent and it depends on how secure your IT department wants to be on your network. So just check it. If you're not seeing them, they may be in your spam. All right, so let's hop forward to the next one. And this one's mainly here as a reminder. OLC does allow us to receive session evaluations. And so this one's here to make sure that we remind our attendees for all of our sessions to actually complete the evaluation. Katie, did you have anything to add specifically about this?
So I would actually encourage both Discovery Session presenters and Exposition Foundry presenters to include the slide, and the link to that slide can be found on the presenter services page. I'm going to post that in the chat again, because there isn't a synchronous component to this, right? So it would be a good reminder for people who view your VoiceThread presentation to remember to go and provide you with that feedback.
Yes, definitely. Great comment. Thank you so much, Katie. All right, so let's look at the next slide. And these are some of the helpful links. Again, this will be sent to you after today's webinar. And you've heard us already mentioning Presenter Services website. That's the second bullet that's listed there. And that specific one lists all of the information about downloadable guides. It has a link to these webinars that we've previously offered and that we'll be offering as well. The first one that's up there is, just in case you forgot, the description of what is expected of you in this specific format type. I find this is actually super helpful. And so I included that link up there for you so you can go back and look at it and go, what did OLC say I'm doing in this particular type of presentation format? So that's a super helpful one to just kind of help you imagine what it is that we might package together, just like we've talked about today. The third bullet is definitely my favorite one. So I want to, again, encourage you guys to think about, particularly if this might be your first time ever presenting at a professional conference, your first time presenting in a discovery session, if you want to get a little bit of feedback, Tanya and I and a suite of other OLC volunteer experts are available for you as presenter services coaches. And we do pre-conference coaching for you. And so we have the ability to not only help you to kind of craft what you're planning to talk about, but you can even do a live presentation, share it with us, get some feedback, etc. And that is our role as presenter coaches. We love to do that. And so that third link that you're seeing there is where you can sign up in order to have an assigned professional coach actually help you with this. Again, I told you presenter services is unique. It's something that's very different that we offer at the Online Learning Consortia. And so we love this service. We think it's fantastic. And all it does is just help to kind of polish out your presentations a little bit. Those last two bullets are very specific to VoiceThread. I mentioned this at the very beginning of the webinar today, that we had included some links for you that might help give you some ideas of seeing what other people do. Again, in my role on my campus, faculty development, faculty support, the number one thing that they ask for is, I really need to see examples. So if that's you, because that's me too, then I wanted to make sure you guys had these as examples. So that first link is a link to the VoiceThread library. The second link, which it's okay, you you can go back. The second link was an example of a great voice thread that had already been created. You can click on it. You can see other comments that have been added. It's actually really fantastic, and it gives you a good idea of what this looks like when somebody has created it. And then you can see comments from other individuals as well. You can see what it looks like when there's different people in the threads providing commentary. And this one was really nice because the person not only added text comments, but they also added voice all the way through it. So there's a number of different really neat examples that are available to you. You can see the videos are in there. There's screen shares, there's images. This is just a really nice one because they used all the toys and all the tools available to us. If you notice up at the top right of that box that we can see here, that's closed captions. And so that's what we were talking about. It's so critical to us that you guys make it a point to use the specific version that we're giving you for the VoiceThread template, because we want to make sure that everything is totally accessible to all of our viewers. So please do make sure to use that. Know that that's critical for us because we work really hard to make all of our content fully accessible. If you take a look back at that last slide that we were on, one of the items to also think about is the very last item on the next to the last bullet where it says more higher education and online learning. There's probably more examples there than you even want, but this is one of my favorites. This is one of my favorites to share with my own faculty, so I wanted you guys to see this. These are great from many of our current OLC and previous OLC presenters. And it looks like Tanya is hovering over one from one of our previous OLC presenters as well, from Michelle Pacansky-Brock. So these are really great ones. They've been done really professionally, and it will give you a good idea of what this looks like and what types of images and videos, et cetera, can be shared. This is a good one as well because you can see all the commentary that's coming in from various users as well. So do take some time if you're interested in seeing examples of really well done voice threads from other people. Then these that we have that are linked out, the VoiceThread library, the professional development voice threads, the higher education and online learning ones, and then that very last bullet is just free workshops. So if you want a free VoiceThread workshop, then those are quick links that will take you back to those. So just want to make sure you guys have all of those available. You notice that there's one that's coming up tomorrow, it looks like, in fact. And so you've got a few that are available if you're interested in those. Those are just offered from the company themselves. But these are the same types of resources that we share with our faculty here. They really love these examples, and it really helps them to get a good idea of things that you can do. As I started in the beginning of the webinar, you know, one of the benefits of using VoiceThread is there's so much interactivity that you can build in. And then you can have all of the different types of comments from your users as well. So I think you'll really enjoy this as a tool. Definitely take the time to kind of peruse and look at a couple of the areas that you think might be applicable to you and useful to you, and get some ideas from those as well. All right, so let's hop back to the slideshow, and I think we're at the very end so that we can take some questions. Yep. All right, so we're going to open it up for questions. I'm also going to hand it directly off to Katie because Katie always has lots of nuggets of wisdom to share with us.
Thanks, Sherry. You know, I actually don't have any additional nuggets other than what we've already covered. I would like to open the floor up for some questions. We have been kind of fast and furiously answering them in the chat, but if we missed your question or you have another question, please feel free to let us know. And it looks like Harika has her hand up. So Harika, do you want to grab the mic and ask your question?
Sure, thanks, Katie. Just a quick question. So I tried looking up for the coaching session, and I see that when I open the link that the last day to request was October 5th. Is that still valid, or I just wanted to kind of check in on that because I didn't want to end up filling the form out and just to know that I've bothered you guys with an email that probably should have been before October 5th.
That is not applicable. That has been extended, and so you are welcome to continue to submit that. And thank you for actually pointing that out. I didn't realize that that date had not been updated. So we will edit that momentarily for you. But
Right.
No, you can actually request coaching all the way up through about a week before.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Swati asks in the comments if we'll get access to the recording. Just a reminder that this is going to be posted on that Presenter Services webpage, both the recording and the slide deck, so that you can continue to access them as needed, or for those of you who are watching the recording on demand, we'll have access to those as well. But give me, a couple of hours after we end for the recording to render and for me to get that up onto YouTube and post the link. Are there any other questions that we can answer for you today? And you know what, if you think of a question tomorrow or next week, feel free to reach out to us. And I'm going to put our conference email address in the chat again. It is monitored by the entire OLC conference team. And so you should be able to get a response pretty quickly if you want to send us an email. And again, if there is a technical issue or an access issue, please reach out to us via the email, because that way it will give us a little bit of time to research what might be going on and be able to provide you with a thorough answer, or to loop in VoiceThread support if it's something that we need to ask VoiceThread to assist with. All right, I'm going to put that conference email in the chat again. And I just also want to say a very sincere thank you to all of you who participated and joined the webinar today. We really appreciate your time this afternoon, and we really look forward to your participation in the conference coming up in a few weeks. Again, if you have questions, reach out to us, and I'll post the recording as soon as I'm able to later this afternoon. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, but I will stay on for a couple of minutes just to make sure that everyone's questions have been answered. Thank you all, and thank you so much to Sherry and Tanya from our OLC Presenter Services for conducting the webinar today.